Well, and one of the claims in it is that Queen Camilla was on the phone to Piers Morgan saying, thank you so much for firing up about Princess Pinocchio, as he calls her. Well, he's been on his show today in the UK and said utter rubbish. Literally, he has never had such a conversation, let alone multiple phone calls, all the rest of it. And, well, generally with these books, as soon as one thing is proven to be false, it starts to really colour the effectiveness of the rest of the book, doesn't it?
Well, definitely, and I think that Piers speaking tonight, calling Omid Scobie a lickspittle. That's the sort of phrase he's used to describe him in the past. But saying that this book is a pack of lies. That Omid alleging that Piers had spoken to Queen Camilla. She'd basically given him a pat on the back for going after Meghan, and during your show, I think this is, we're getting into a lot of mudslinging here, but when you're putting in a book and writing it as fact, you're going to be on some very, very shaky ground indeed. And then you look at the sort of the characterisations of the main players within the monarchy, calling King Charles not fit to lead, William being power hungry, just crazy on the top job at hand, and it sort of kind of unravels for me. So there's been a lot of discussion about it, a lot of noise made about it because of who is writing the book. But I think when you've got an agenda, as Omid Scobie clearly has over the last couple of years, we've got to maybe take a step back and realise what's at play here.
Also, apparently inside the book is either knowledge of or direct quoting of the letters that were exchanged between King Charles and Meghan. Pretty obviously his source for that is not going to be the King of England. So she's worked with him, she's told a friend who's told him. How are we gleaning out of the early hours of the book about just how much information he knows about that letter?
Well, very interestingly enough, I mean, Omid Scobie gave an interview to the Sunday Times here over the weekend, and he was hitting back at that moniker of the Sussex's cheerleader, sort of saying that he didn't appreciate it. But I mean, that's there to be seen over the last couple of years, isn't it? He has been the cheerleader in chief, and I think that the issue of as I said, the characterisations that he's put forward, talking about this letter that to Meghan apparently wrote the King, is really raking over old coals, isn't it? We thought we'd heard the last of the race row. If you remember, as most people will, that unprecedented statement from the late Queen saying recollections may vary, that Meghan may have been mistaken in her assessment of what was said to her at the time. Maybe that was dealt in-house, an outside law firm called in to Buckingham Palace, and we hadn't heard any more of it. However, the fact that now it's not just one royal, it could be two, it could be another member of the household, it's really sort of muddying the waters here. And I certainly don't think this is going to do Harry and Meghan any favours in terms of their relationship with the royal family, who have, of course, said nothing up to now, and I don't imagine they'll be paying too much attention to it.
I mean, it's an interesting thing about, history that you're trying to write as people are still alive or their versions of things, which is that in many ways doesn't seem like there's a lot new in the book, but he's trying to move the ball sort of, a metre further down the field. Does that seem to be the context of the book? Because even in sort of the pre-hype for it, there's not a singular grand revelation that would make the front page of the papers, would it?
Well, I thought that as well. I thought the couple of serialisations, there was one in America and there was one in France, they were pretty weak. And it was really just, as I said, going for these generalised characterisations of the main players. What is interesting is this is coming at a time where we are looking at Harry and Meghan trying to sort of repair their reputation, and it's been battered and bruised over the last few months. Their Netflix deal is potentially on the rocks. The Spotify deal was pulled from under them. Disney didn't want to work with Meghan anymore. And certainly, she was on a red carpet the other day, pretty much making it up on the spot, saying, we've got loads of interesting things in the pipeline. You just wait and see. Me and my husband are very, very excited about the future. However, what does the future look like? And that's certainly something that we've talked about, that Harry is trying to maybe set those sort of green shoots for a relationship with his father, calling him on his birthday, sending him a video message of the kids. And then if he wants to repair a relationship with his father, then this is going to be all noise in the background and very, very unwelcome indeed. And I don't think the royal family are going to take too kindly of it, because, of course, they've got form for colluding with the author. So, I imagine they're sitting back and thinking, let's wait and see what happens, and the reaction from across the pond from Harry and Meghan.
Now, what's happening with King Charles in the lead up to Christmas? There's always a little bit of attention on the royals about where they're going to be, family retreats, all the rest of it. What is he up to at the moment?
Well, I'll tell you one thing with Harry and Meghan. There is a possibility, and I wouldn't say necessarily that they definitely won't be invited for Christmas, because there is a possibility that the king may open the door to them and say, come over and spend Christmas with us. But the only reason that would happen is if William and Kate decide to spend Christmas with the Middletons, because I can't see the two brothers sitting across the dinner table waiting to sort of carve up the turkey together, because there might be a bit of a punch up rather than a carve up on Christmas Day, because their relationship is still pretty fractured. So I would imagine it's still in the gutter. People talking to me the fact that William wants nothing more to do with his brother. The king is trying to get on with things. He's in through the first transitional year now. He's going to have a big 2024. There's going to be trips, obviously, to Canada, to hopefully to Africa, and hopefully I'll get to come down under with him to come and see you guys, because that is definitely long overdue for the king, and I think that he's obviously got to come and make an effort, hasn't he?
Yeah, look, I've talked about it before, and look, I'm not a Republican, but certainly when he was being crowned at his coronation, for Australia just to be referred to as "and the realms," for there not to have been even William and Kate as a way of trying to say, okay, if you're not into this king, well, then this is what's down the line. I'm surprised at the lack of urgency to reach out to places like Australia. Is there any reason why that you're hearing from the royal household that it's either too far, or they think that we're too far gone in terms of a place that wants to stick with it?
No, certainly I don't think that. And, you speak to anyone at the palace, they're very, very keen to try and get the king and queen down there. I know that there was some potentially jostling to see who would go where over the first sort of 12 to 24 months of the king's reign. And this transitional year was very, very important. I think there was a lot of focus put on the UK, put onto the future of what the king's sort of core causes would be. And I suppose they didn't want to really shake the boat. Of course, there is the growing Republican movement, not just at home, but abroad as well. Maybe they didn't want to rock the boat in the first year, but there's definitely a lot of exuberance from the king and the team to come to Australia. I personally would have expected it in that first year. I was very, very surprised when it wasn't on the agenda for the first 12 months. But I think that if it goes on too long, then that sort of Republican movement, the Republican voice grows, and it will become a problem for the royals.
I just find it amazing that in all those ceremonies where they read out all of the connections and all the everything and the medal for this and the fact that all of these Commonwealth countries kind of off to one side, a little shout out every now and then. That's all we ask. The other side of the world. Also, Prince Andrew, he's not planning to do an interview anytime soon, but of course he did that terrible one at the height of things a few years ago, and now some dramatisations, some dramas are going to bring it all back to light.
If you hadn't had enough of the bombshell that had gone off after the BBC Newsnight interview, where it's going to be repeated, and well might he be watching it behind the sofa and sort of behind his eyes, because this is going to be very, very uncomfortable viewing for not only him but the rest of the royal family. As I say, drudging this up once again, that incredible interview by BBC Newsnight, Emily Maitlis, and it's going to be dramatised not once but twice. Netflix and Amazon vying for the main spots. We've got Emily Maitlis played by Gillian Anderson and Ruth Wilson. It's going to be two sort of big blockbusters going head to head, and I think that when we revisit it, we still can't believe how incredible that was. I mean, it sent shockwaves through the royal family. We're talking about it years later, led to that incredible multi-million-pound payoff from Prince Andrew to his sex abuse accuser, so he didn't have to face her in court, and of course has led to his complete exile from the royal family. And I still think he's the only person in the world who believes he's still got a role to play within the royal family and within royal life. But this might just be one of the other final nails in the coffin for Prince Andrew when everyone gets to see these two dramatisations.
And geez, I tell you what, isn't it extraordinary that they've been able to find not one but two actors who don't sweat?
Well, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, when you look at the rosters, surely there wouldn't have been too many, but fair play to the casting directors, I suppose.
Yeah. Imagine the bar. Okay, do you look like him? Do you sound like him? Now, do you sweat? Russell, thank you very much. Look forward to reading your stuff in the Mirror. Good on you, mate.
My pleasure. Cheers, Paul.